episode 36 of the Bithell Games Podcast. I'm Alexander Slawinski.
And I'm Mike Bithell.
Each week we talk games, what it's like to make games, and the random stuff we don't generally find time to talk about because we're playing and or making games. Show notes. Subsurface Circular, available now on iOS for your iPad. Anything you'd like to add
that's
about
out
that?
now. Or it will be when this goes up. Excellent. Surprise. Yeah, cool. Awesome.
Unless something goes tragically wrong between our recording and it going live. And
then they'll never hear this anyway. So this, if you're hearing this, it all went okay.
It all went great. Or the panicked phone call to our producer Jonathan did not go through.
Yeah, Jonathan needs to check his email more regularly. That's the main takeaway.
But yes, Subsurface Circular available now for Steam and iOS for your iPad. Anything else you'd like to add about that, Mike?
No, I suspect you're going to want to talk about it a little bit later in the what's going on in the studio, right?
No, I got other stuff.
Oh, you got other stuff. Oh, well, yeah, it was good. We ported the game to iPad. Nick did a great job bringing over the interface.
Oh, okay, fine.
Well, that's good. Fine. No, it was, it's all right. It's a good game. So teams work very hard on it. Actually, it's kind of the problem with the big studios is often the people kind of at the top, the owners of the studio. They often kind of forget the work that's done by their team, and you're such
a jerk. I'm so mad at you. Fine, we'll come back to this. What are you playing?
Nothing. I've been releasing a game. No, I'm sorry. I'm gonna stop. I've been playing. I finished, or I decided to stop playing Shadow of War. I didn't so much finish it as step away.
What a weird modern concept, eh?
Yeah, it is. It's very telling of where things are at this stage. Yeah.
Because I did the same thing with Metal Gear. Like I got to the end of what is called Act 1 in Metal Gear. And I felt after, being there for 40 or 50 hours, whatever it was, like, I got this. I had a good, and it it had this nice sort of conclusion to it. And I was like, I'm good. Cause everyone pretty much told me, don't go past that. It's the same thing with Alien Isolation. Alien Isolation. That was the horror one, right?
That's the first person stealthy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the comedy game. No. Not
but every
comedy game.
But everyone says, there's a particular part of that game that once you get to it, you just stop. Like that was the game. You enjoyed it a lot. Just stop right there. Don't go any further.
Yeah, it's the age we live in that kind of continued engagement is in vogue, right? I mean, TV shows, right? Like I started watching Scandal a couple of weeks ago, and I think the very first thing you said to me was, "Yeah, it's great up to season, what was it, 3?
Season 3.
Stop at season 3. It's like, but I bought seasons 1 to 5. Stop at 3. Stop at 3. That's where it ends. And I think we're going to see that more and more. It's kind of, we've got this one really weird outlier, which is the Marvel movies, which are staying at a consistent quality level, and doesn't seem to be getting sick of it. It seems to still be working as a business model. But then pretty much everything else, eventually there's a point where you duck out of it. I think what's interesting with Shadow of War is that there's a very obvious point where the game as a open world kind of traditional story-based game ends, and it becomes something that is very clearly a kind of a time sink kind of looping mechanic. And you go, okay, well, that's what this is. And I'll probably go back to it, to be honest, because the loops are satisfying. But I know how the story sort of ends, and I'm okay if I need to watch a YouTube video of the final cutscene before the next one comes out, then I'll do that kind of thing. I don't know, are you at that stage yet? Have you finished Act 3?
So no, I haven't.
Okay.
I think it's funny because Shadow of War is like this perfect sort of, you're talking about the end, and now after last week's episode, I get to talk about the beginning. And they're both two very strange sort of.
It's very much a game of 3 acts. Like very, very much a game that kind of, it's the way it's structured is, it feels discreet. It feels specific in each part. So yeah, go for it.
Well, so at this portion of the game where you are, do you get the feeling like it's Clash of Clans, right? Like, is it? Okay. It's a single player
hobby game rather than, it feels, everything, and in fairness, I've not played. I kind of saw where it was going, and I looked around and found out what the next stuff was, and I've stepped away. It might be that I'm massively misrepresenting it, but yes, it's hit a point where it's like this is a continued activity game, no longer a story single-player campaign structure.
So if you were a 12-year-old, you'd be thrilled right now.
Oh, this is what I wanted, as a kid playing. I mean, when I was 13, just like literally rebooting Deus Ex from the start and just going through again and seeing how well I could do that time. Like, yeah, I don't think it's evil or bad. I guess the one criticism I have of it, and also it's fair to say, like, most open world games after the last level dump you back into the world and say, hey, you can play the game now, hoover up side quests. This is different. This transforms the world. It's a transformative thing that kind of locks off all that old content and just gives you this new cycle.
So it's like a completely different game then at that portion. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's still built on the same foundations, which is why I made the decision, like, I'm good, this is cool. But yeah, it feels like an activity they want me to keep playing at. And for me, it's winter, so Wolfenstein's out on Friday, Assassin's Creed out on Friday, Mario's out on Friday. Like, I felt like I'd got my fun out of it, and I had a great time with it, but like, it felt like it was like, oh, okay, this is the time for me to move on, and that's cool. It's also, I guess it's worth pointing out that all the controversy around kind of their loot crates and their microtransactions, it's clearly that last act is a machine for the consumption of those things as well. Potentially, I've seen people refer to it as a grind, but it is that kind of. It's definitely, they're trying to build that economy in the same way as a Clash of Clans kind of game does. Of kind of, you're going to want to spend a bit of money maybe, and again, it just wasn't. It hadn't got the same pace of content that I enjoyed for the rest of the game. So where are you at in the game? So I'm now a couple
spoilers. Sorry, apologies to everyone. Spoilers.
Well, I mean, it's yeah. I mean, if you listen to last week's episode, you know that I hadn't gotten past the end of Act 1 at that stage, and I was very confused about what was. What they were what was going on, really. Like, It just stuff was just getting thrown at a wall, and we're just having characters that make no sense showing up, and it's just like this whole entire thing. Then you get to Act 2. Oh, that's where the game. That's the game. That's
which is all summarized in My Friend Bruce.
Oh, Bruce.
Who perfectly kind of welcomes you into the game as it's meant to be, and he's also a meta joke about where the original movies were made. Which is great. An Antipodean sound.
He is wonderful. I love him.
He is.
And then...
animated as well. There's some lovely moments, like I'm doing the popping of the cheek. Like, yeah. That's the one. Like, that's just nice moments. Someone had some fun with that.
But that definitely feels where the game really starts, which ends up... Like, I can't wait until, some form of post-mortem... Like, this there's so much about that opening that can be discussed and deconstructed. We're not doing that on this show. But that sort of, Mark Brown Game Maker's Toolkit, like
a deconstruction. I think actually it's interesting. The opening makes more sense once you get to the ending. I'm not going to say anything beyond that, but like I see why certain choices were made. Put it that way.
Interesting. But yeah, for me, the real game starts at the beginning of Act 2, which is 5 to 6 hours in. Mm-hmm. Like you can probably mainline the story content and get there much faster.
No, I was pretty single-minded in my pursuit of completion, and I think I got there about 5-6 hours in as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and then after that point. The game really, and I don't know if this happened to you. This definitely happened to me almost perfectly, almost like, oh, I fell into the designer's trap. I hit level 20 at almost the exact moment that I started like Act 2, like just like maybe within 20 minutes of it, which means that I had opened up every single one of the core powers that exist in like on that character sheet, like of not
but not the stuff that was story locked.
none of the stuff that was story locked and none of really the subset stuff.
Yeah.
But every single almost like it was perfectly designed so that by the time you got to the end of Act 1, you had opened up, like, you had hit level 20 and had opened up every single one of those, like, main powers in the chain.
Yeah, that's usually, I mean, it's never an exact science. I've had to balance RPGs before, and it is like, you're working within threshold. So it probably wasn't that they'd said, well, level 20 is when you go to Act 2. It's probably they'll be between levels 17 and 23. Like they'll have like a vague general sense, but yeah.
And I don't know if it's because I've been on this side of things for a bit now, but that was the first time I had ever noticed such a, like, almost such a precise moment in time where it was like, oh, these things all align. Oh, that's kind of creepy. And yeah, of course, you know, it was probably designed that way. But
it's also luck. It's also, it will just be that you're falling exactly on that point, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, Shadow of Mordor is great. Like, it's what I want. It's what I want from the sequel, and I'm enjoying the Nemesis system. A lot of funny things have happened. And yeah, and some weird. It's just, I mean, it's the same thing as in the first one. Like, just these weird things happen, and then you've got like 4 captains all fighting like around you at once, and some of them are yours, and some of them are theirs, and then someone else shows up, and then someone runs away. But yeah, no, that's my weekend. That's my weekend plans.
And that's built on they've added the this ability to summon characters, which is kind of, I think they're trying to kind of force those soups of characters to happen a bit more often. I think they're trying to give you a bit more so you can summon. You've got your bodyguards, right? So you can kind of bring those into the fights as you go and stuff like that. It's cool. I'm interested to see how you feel about it when you're further along story-wise, because for me, it opened after our last podcast. It definitely opened up more into some weird stuff that was a bit more reminiscent of the opening, and then the ending is odd, but interesting, but good. But yeah, I think my only other criticism of it is the movement control. How did you get on with the movement control? Like, in terms of like jumping onto the wrong ledge or that kind of first generation Assassin's Creed problem?
It's weird. I didn't feel like I had a problem with that, but a lot of the death from above stuff or the death from below didn't seem to be. It very much seemed to be previous generation Assassin's Creed level of not knowing what target I'm trying.
Yeah, there's a few things. There's a few things there where you can tell they're still catching up. I think it's better than the first game, but definitely there were a lot of moments for me where the controls didn't feel as tight as I wanted them to be. That's cool. That's something they'll iterate on in the third game, hopefully. Yeah, we'll see.
And now it's time for what's going on at the studio, and I guess we're putting what I want to talk about aside, because we should talk about how Subsurface Circular is coming to, or is out now on iOS, and a lot of people did some work on it, and we should acknowledge that work and praise them for it.
So we started talking to Apple. It was just before Subsurface came out. I feel like it was like, wasn't it literally like a week or two before it came out on PC and Mac? I think like it was, super early, because we put Thomas Was Alone out on the platform before and had some success there. So we've kind of kept in touch with those guys. And yeah, this felt like something we knew was gonna potentially be interesting on iPad, but we didn't really.
But it was a huge question mark. It was still very much like, how's this gonna go? We don't know.
Well, yeah, at this point, we were still kind of, this is a weird experiment. We're going to put it out for $5 and see how it goes and see if anyone likes it, kind of thing. And to be honest, I remember the meeting with Apple being very much like that. Basically, like, we don't know what this is yet. Showed them the game, walked them through some of the stuff in it, but basically said, like, this is either going to sink or swim, and we just wanted you to know about it just before we launch, so you've got a little bit of awareness, and we'll come back to you.
This meeting never happened.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll come back to you. Like,
no one's going to be embarrassed by this. No one's going to. It's all good. And then of course it launched, and that went well, and incredibly quickly I started getting like messages from people saying that they were playing it on tablets, like they were playing on like, you know, Microsoft Surface or whatever, these kind of the PC tablets. And that was how they liked playing it, and that kind of touch thing was working, because it is a game which you play with a mouse, so, you know, a finger works just as well. It was a logical place to take it. So yeah, at that point we started playing again. Nick Tringali, who's awesome, who's worked on our game since Volume, he kind of took it and started making the iPad version. Me and him worked together on the interface and kind of making that an awesome thing that kind of felt right. And also, of course, because an iPad's so much smaller than your computer monitor, so like reading text off of it is a challenge, and then obviously technically making it run well on an iPad, all those kind of fun jobs.
Well, the concerns were text size and sausage fingers. Like that was the issue. Like, because I mean I remember being like, how hard is this going to be? And you're like, and you do that thing that you do when I say something that is clearly not acknowledging the
Mike,
challenges involved.
Press the export to iPad button. How hard is this?
Do it. Just do it.
It's a game you play with a mouse. It's easy.
And then you kindly and politely say, Alexander, I would love to do that. However, these hands.
If you want to get it right. I mean, that's the thing, and we did. And I think what's come out the other end of it is neat. So it made sense. It felt like a cool place to put it. Nick managed to get the performance great, so it runs like, you know, the resolution depends on which version of iPad you're playing it on, but like on the newest ones, it's comparable to the PC experience, but also much higher resolution because of those Retina displays. So it's a really nice way to play the game. I like it. So then Apple like it as well. They've kind of given us feedback and helped us through the process. And then today, when you're listening to this podcast, if you're listening to it as it goes out, like a good listener,
unless, of course, something has gone terribly wrong and I didn't get in touch with Jonathan.
And then this is just, I'm in a lot of trouble with Apple for even having this conversation publicly, because that was the thing that really kind of was cool, actually, was Apple wanted to do the surprise thing again, because we did the surprise thing on PC and Mac, and we talked to them about that beforehand, and then after we kind of talked about how that had gone, had very kind of, you know, honest conversation about kind of where we felt things were working and weren't working, and good on them. They said they wanted to do the same thing and kind of and have the same kind of surprise for their audience. So it's gonna be I'm fascinated. We're recording this a little bit beforehand. I'm fascinated to see whether the audience, well, A, cares, but then B, like whether it works with that audience, because it's a bit more mainstream than the audience who've been playing the game so far. It's a bit more normal people, not like us, not nerds, or nerds, but nerds that aren't, gamers. And it's just an interesting kind of group, because it's a group that really liked Thomas Was Alone. And then since then, we've not really, other than Earthshape, I guess, we've not really done anything that's in that kind of sphere. We Volume was very, it was very hardcore kind of gamer game. So it's interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see whether that works. And we're also there's like an interview, I think, on the store and stuff, which will be interesting. And there's some various things. So we'll see whether that works. It's all kind of new for us, because we've not. I mean, Thomas Was Alone came out on iOS, but it was published by Bossa, so we didn't really do any of this work. So it's been an interesting process learning how to release a game on iOS. It's actually really straightforward and cool. So we'll see how it goes. Are you excited? You're excited.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's a game for on an Apple platform, and I haven't really, and it's a premium game for an Apple platform, so that's.
Yeah, we decided against a freemium model where you pay for each character you want to talk to. 20 cents you can talk to this character.
And before anyone says it, no, I never brought that up as an idea. It was never a concept. It was never a discussion.
Kerry pointed out to me there's a book reader, I can't remember what the name of it is, on mobile platforms where they're trying to do freemium for books. So it literally is the first 50% for free, and then you pay for the second 50%, or you pay for like the next 45%, and then you pay a premium for the ending kind of thing. It's just like, that's fiendish. Like, and also I guess you're showing a lot of faith in your story that people are going to want to pay to see the rest of it. But yeah, so it's a premium game.
That's intense.
It is intense. Don't get that idea. We're never going to do that. We're not doing that. Stop it.
No, I know. I'm just trying to like. I mean, it's one of those things, right? Where it's, I say like, why would anyone ever do that?
Yeah.
Who would ever do that? But then again, I look at the business models for the last 10 years in this industry.
But also, like,
who knew we'd be here at this point?
But like Netflix, this is Netflix, right? Like, I'm paying a continued subscription to Netflix because I want to see the next episode of Good Place. Like, they're holding content to ransom. That's how. Yeah, it's like you say. It's where everything's going. Subscriptions and. Why get $10 from someone now if you can get $3 from them every month for the rest of their life? But yeah, anyway, we've gone off topic. This game is it's launching at, what's the price it's launching at?
It's launching at a fair price.
A fair price that neither of us we need to double check that actually. Just had something to do after the podcast record. But yeah, it's launching at a good price, I think, for the platform and for what the game is. It's still a small game. It's still a short game. It's still
the same game.
It's the same game. That's the thing, and it is. I think it's neat. We'll see if that audience. It's gonna be really interesting seeing how completely different audience reacts to it and responds to it.
1, 2, 3. I wanna thank you for reading the freedom mail again. Thank you for reading the freedom mail again.
Now, last week I mentioned I need to see some new reader mail, and this week I'm really putting it out there. Please send us reader mail.
No one cares. No one wants our opinions on anything.
Please send it. Please send us reader mail.
We are becoming redundant and obsolescence, built-in obsolescence to us too. It's good. It's good that people are moving on. I think it's good that they're finding new people to ask questions of. I think don't send us questions. Because it's just it's up to you really. I want the audience to feel like, I don't want them to feel pity. I want them to feel like if they have a question, bring it to us. If not, it's all good.
Well,
we'll still be here talking innately.
Well, the good thing is
Alexander making fictional people to send emails in. Well, hey, Mike and Alexander, how come you're so great?
You're so awesome. I mean, I can always depend on Andre to send us something, and he did.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So
hey,
here we
Andre.
go. Hi, Alexander and Mike. I've noticed that most people that teach game design through YouTube video courses and books don't have a popular game in their portfolio. Even creators of the most popular game design book, which I'm not saying on this show, wasn't involved in creation of a really popular game. Do you think it's right that people are usually learning game design from people who weren't able to make popular games, or people should do their research and learn only from people who were involved in the creation of popular games? Best regards, Andre. I love this question.
It's a really good, it's a meaty one.
It's a meaty one, and it touches on so many insecurities in this industry. But do you want to take the first swing at it, or should I?
You go for it.
So the thing that I like about this one is academia. Academia is something that exists, I think, in most industries. Certainly, when you are dealing with business school, the professor you're dealing with was not the CEO of like Nike, and if they were the CEO of Nike, they might come in and do like a speech, but you don't really get taught by them. It's a different way of thinking. The best. Oh God, this is. So, yes, Mike, you don't watch Project Runway. I get it. Okay,
it's not my kind of show. No, that's fair to say.
But Tim
is Bryan
Gunn
Cranston in it?
No, Tim Gunn on that show is actually a really good example of someone who was a teacher and is a mentor, and it's a different way of delivering ideas, delivering concepts. So even though, he's not, Hugo Boss or one of the head. I mean, yes, he's been dead.
I was going to say Hugo. But I don't think Hugo possibly very popular on television either. Well, maybe in the current climate. I don't know. That's another episode though. We could come back to that one.
Wow. Every fashion historian in the room right now went, "Oh, I get that joke."
It's a good fashion joke. There's not enough. I was going to say, we don't have to have this conversation on the podcast, but I was going to mention to you that I didn't think we did enough kind of fashion jokes.
Fascism. Maybe you know what? Maybe that was what it was. Maybe he got confused. But the point being is that a teacher does deliver different things. Academia definitely delivers, and then we have to really, and this is where I start getting kind of business nerdy. Is this concept of time, of opportunity cost, that there are some people who are really good at creating something, and there are people who are really good at thinking about something, and then those thoughts help influence the creators, and that ecosystem can create good things. And when you go to GDC and you go to DICE, many of the people that they put on stage, if you're a very hardcore sort of, they've never created a game, why are they even on stage? They shouldn't even be there. And on some level, you might be right. But on some level, the information that they put out there, or the thoughts that they put out there, might help influence games that moves the industry forward. So that's sort of my thinking on that, Mike.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't disagree with any of that. Which is good. I think it's a different skill set. I think it's a really different skill set. To be able to make a game is a very different skill than to be able to teach someone about making games. I think when it comes to technical advice and kind of very specific kind of this is how games are made advice, experience is essential. Because I mean that just on what do you do after you've opened up Unity, that kind of thing. There's an experience level that's required in order to teach that stuff that is useful. But when it comes to kind of broader themes of kind of what can games do, game design, where should games go artistically, I think there's a lot of areas where actually having a bit of distance probably helps. We need to make sure this is something that this is like how history's taught is, always remember who you're listening to in every situation. Like, information is useful, as you say. It doesn't necessarily matter who it comes from if it is useful. But that said, you should also always be conscious of where the information's coming from. And that might make people bad teachers. I'm a terrible teacher if you want to know, the pros and cons of releasing on iPad. Because for right now, I'm the biggest fan of iPad there ever was. I love iPad. I think it's a great device. Actually, I do genuinely like the iPad. But you should assume that I have some bias as I'm releasing a game on iPad right now. And not
released.
Time travel.
Subsurface Circular available right now on iOS.
So I have a horse in the race, and whether or not that was a great dog impression, Alexander, but that was not a horse. We're leaving that in. Moving on. Alexander's dog is taking part in an academic kind of role in the podcast. It's good. So basically, I think often the people who make stuff, we are so tied up in biases and relationships and being kind of in the workplace and being a part of the games industry that I'm not sure we're the most useful sources. I think actually you do need kind of outsiders to some extent to be able to talk about this stuff. So I think that's good too. I think that's useful. I do believe every academic could learn a lot by making stuff, and I think everyone who makes stuff could learn a lot by listening to the academics, and I think there's cross-pollination of ideas is always good. In terms of as someone who's trying to learn about game development, always think about the quality of the information. There's plenty of people. To my knowledge, the chap who does Game Maker's Toolkit doesn't make games, but he does really great analysis that's genuinely very useful. And I think to kind of a layman or a student watching that stuff, it's probably blown away every couple of minutes. I'm blown away a few times every episode by just something I've not considered, and I like to think of myself as pretty experienced. So like, that doesn't invalidate his observations that he's not. I might be completely wrong. He might be secretly working on the next BioShock. But like, you know, I think the information is always the important thing. But yes, it doesn't hurt to think through the lens of who's speaking and what. And
I also think this concept of popular game.
Yeah, that's another one, right? Game. Like, yeah, define.
Define popular game, and then define influential game. Like, because something may not have been popular, but then someone else piggybacks off of it, and that they refine it a little bit. They iterate on it, and it becomes a multi-billion-dollar franchise. Hello, welcome to the games industry. That is genuinely like how so many things. And also,
chance
happen.
Is so tied to success and being in the right place at the right time, and lots of things that are not directly associated with how good you are at making games. There's lots of other factors that play a part. And I think, honestly, it comes down to skill of teaching. Like, I'm a terrible teacher. I can put together like 1 or 2 hour-long talks for conferences a year. A teacher has to do, like 3 or 4 hours of content a day, right? Like, it's crazy. That's a different skill set, and they're not invalidated by having not worked on those games that you find popular. That said, absolutely, as Alexander says, like, if you're at university, if you're a student, or if you're studying wherever you're studying, like, do push to find insight from the industry. Like, definitely the equivalent of getting the CEO of Nike to come in and do a half-hour talk. Like, go and hunt down that information. It's out there. But I don't think the existence of that invalidates. And I think, yeah.
And the information is so much more out there, even like when I was in school. And certainly, when I went back several years ago for my master's, like, even then, where the access that an 18-year-old, 19-year-old has right now to information that the GDC Vault is an amazing example, right?
The free side of that is very useful.
Yeah. Like, there is something that genuinely 5 years ago, maybe, like, you had to pay hundreds of dollars.
I remember when you used to have to pay
because you still have this.
I remember as a student, I like listening to old Tim Schafer. I'm not calling Tim Schafer old Tim Schafer. I'm saying they were old recordings of Tim Schafer. I'm sorry, Tim. But like paying like $2 for like half an hour of audio of him. And it's cool, and the information out there. The other thing to say as well is one of the most important parts of learning is exposing yourself to, especially with a creative field like game development, is expose yourself to some stuff that you disagree with, and don't, I know, I mean, I actively had an argument, a fight with one of my lecturers when I was at university, and it's still something I run into that guy at events, with his new batches of students, and he's like, "Oh, you're the guy who told me to do something unfortunate to myself," and then it's like, "Yes, I am." But I learned a lot from that guy, and by having my opinions challenged, there's definitely stuff that I don't agree with that lecturer said, and that helped me to learn as well, because that then sent me on a journey to find information that could kind of help me to argue better. I think there's a trend more generally that we try and dismiss people because we don't like the people rather than the thing they're necessarily saying. So don't use, that person's never shipped a game as an excuse to not listen to that person. That person might be absolutely brilliant and incredibly smart. And also the person who shipped the popular game might be absolutely terrible at their job. It does happen. The games are made by teams, so it can happen. So basically, soak up information wherever you can get it. That's basically my summary.
And then pick and choose from that what you want to.
But that's not. Yeah, learning is soaking stuff up and then. Yep. In practice, when you make games yourself, you get to decide which bit of learning you ignore, but you should still hear it before you decide not to do it.
If you have a burning question about games, game development, or just about the complexities of the universe, you can send those questions to us via contact@BithelGames.com. That's contact@BithelGames.com, through the YouTube comments of this show, or on Twitter by pinging @MikeBithell or @Slawinski. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bithell Games Podcast. We can always use your support, so please provide reviews and 5 stars on iTunes, likes and subscribes on YouTube, and positive reinforcement on whatever other platforms you're hearing this show on whenever possible. This podcast was produced more so again this week than usual by Jonathan Downen. We'll be back next week. I'm Alexander Slawinski. Thanks again, and get in the last word, Mike.
Ianucci.